All right, so welcome to another episode of AI Coach. This week we have Chad Meadows. Chad Meadows is director of debate at arguably the best speech and debate team in the country, West Kentucky University, and assistant coach at Marist School, as well as curriculum specialist at Summit Debate, and he runs the College LD Grand Prix. As the former chair of LD at the National Forensics Association, had played a key role in shaping the debate landscape. He's excited about the prospects of AI to assistant coaches and to assist coaches and believe solidify rather than challenge the place of debate in the future of primary, secondary, and higher education. He's also the author of a forthcoming book on modern debate strategy, Introduction to Public Forum and Congressional Debate. Please welcome Chad Meadows. Hello.
Hi,
how are you doing?
Good, I'm doing well.
Excellent. Great. So let's start with the title we have on the screen. So tell us a little bit about the forthcoming book of yours.
Yeah, so the book on the screen, Introduction to Public Forum and Congressional Debate, actually is one that's already written. And it's been published actually for a little bit of a time. Probably made an oopsie in the information I gave you. So that was written by myself and then two other coaches of high school debate at the time, Jeff Hannon and Ben Bergman. And basically it overviews a lot of the best practices that we were kind of all uncovering as we worked in debate camps for public forum and congressional debate. And that's available through, I think, the NSDA, Amazon, etc. But then also
National Speech and Debate Association website. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I'm working on a new book that I'm going to hopefully publish in the next year on modern debate practices, as of yet unnamed. But so that text, I'm really hoping to kind of distill a lot of the strategies behind modern debate that have kind of come up since the ubiquitousness of critical debate and the diversity of strategies that exist and are available to students. Mostly because most of the textbooks that I read kind of assume a landscape of debate that was the reality 30, 40 years ago, and don't kind of adapt the practices and like sort of thoughts about the way that you have to plan for debates, given just how many arguments are available to students in modern debate. So that's kind of like the current project that I'm working on.
So first, let's give it a little background on what you mean by critical debate for some of our people who might not be in the debate community. Give a little rundown what that means.
Yeah, so by critical debate, I mean debate that challenges the foundation of the conversation that a debate resolution would assume that we're supposed to have. So you get a resolution, and that sort of sets the stage for the topics that most people would expect that you're supposed to discuss. And since the sort of like advent of the critique and critical debate, there's been an intervention sort of inspired by academic writing that sort of like challenges the underlying assumptions behind a lot of the classic conversations that we have about politics in general. So whether that be democracy, whether that be the nature of our economic system, whether that be the nature of race in America, there's a lot of exciting academic literature that's challenging those conversations. And I think debate in many ways is mirroring the academic discussions, but also challenging the assumptions that come up when we talk about issues in debate.
So how do you see like recent AI advancements playing a role in that form of debate, the modern strategy of debate?
I think it's one of the most important innovations, at least for the kind of debate that I'm the most invested in, which are debate events that I would call like research focused. So policy debate, NFALD, where there's a season-long resolution and it's kind of a springboard for the students to kind of, let their imagination run wild with how they want to make this topic that they have to debate for a whole year really their own. And one of the biggest challenges of modern debate, I think, for the student and the coach, is how much information there really is to process regarding the diversity of arguments. If you're not familiar with debate as it manifests in intercollegiate debate or in high school debate, in these communities, it's not like someone just gets up and reads a couple of points. They're really digging deep into all different kinds of literature, intersecting every component of the academic interrogation of a topic. And so that's a big burden on students. We have an expectation now that students are familiar with the resolutions and topics in terms of their policy focus, in terms of the way that the humanities and critical scholarship interacts with it. We also expect our students to be very literate and familiar with debate history and understand the theoretical concepts that inform debate practice and be prepared to debate all those things. And so AI, getting back to the AI component, I think does a really good job of providing quick introductory information to students as they're beginning to process that information. I have several examples of times where students have been in a debate, they've encountered an argument that they've never heard of before, and they struggled in that round. And so traditionally you come back and you talk to your coach about it, but most coaches, have 10 plus students. And so sometimes someone gets left out of that conversation to talk with their coach. Well, if you can go to something like a chat GPT and get really good, fairly accurate synthesized information about what just happened, that's really helpful for that student and for that coach, who then has a much better basis to have a future conversation with that student who hopefully now has some background on that issue.
Right. And so when you talk critical, like in English, we start the critical with a C, but in debate land, it's we use the German spelling for some reason. I've heard a few reasons, but even when I go to ChatGPT and ask them to explain a critique, and I spell it KR, with a K, it knows it really does have like fairly accurate feedback. Have you used it to develop critiques already in your coaching strategies?
So I've never used ChatGPT to sort of generate an argument that we've used in competition. I have basically taught it to construct an argument and then sort of like given it to students to sort of like think of arguments on their own. And so I don't know that like this is like the actual, like I'm sure like in terms of the actual AI technology, they would be fully capable of like cutting cards on the internet and figure, but in terms of where it is right now, for what's available to the public, I don't know that most competitive debate teams would be able to just like construct a case with it. But what you can do is you can get really good ideas. And you can get the introductory information that you need to understand reading, and this is something that I encounter, that, students encounter, let's say that you're, reading, a study, and let's say that it's a quantitative study. Let's even move beyond the land of the critical debate land. Let's move into just like traditional like policy analysis. We're looking at relationships, we're looking at social science, and we bring up like a study, and the study's method section, talks about the particular kind of model that they're using. Maybe it's, experimental design, or maybe, it's some sort of qualitative method that uses surveys, et cetera. It can be challenging to be literate in that kind of methodology for every single discipline. And so if you go into ChatGPT, you can get really good synthesized information about that. And that could help you with the article that you're reading and the article that you're trying to like understand and distill. And so, I think for me, at least, I haven't used it to fully construct anything, but I use it all the time to just be like, what does quasi-experimental design mean? Like a
nice,
like a high-powered Wikipedia, if that makes sense.
Right. Right. And sometimes one of my favorite phrases to enter into ChatGPT is explain this to me like I'm 12.
Yes.
And I'll just take an excerpt of anything and just paste it in there. And so that makes me wonder about your role as a curriculum specialist, because Summit Debate serves students very young. How young would you say that are your younger students?
So when I worked at Summit, we had students that were anywhere from middle school all the way up to 12th grade. So very young students. Yeah.
So things like modern debate strategies for middle schoolers. Do you see Chat GPT or any like other AI tools playing a role in sort of like onboarding them quickly to these concepts?
Yeah. So just talking about middle school debate, I'm always shocked at like how good and quickly middle
Ah,
schoolers and younger students can pick up debate. But it kind of makes sense when you think about it, because debate has its own language,
right.
and it has like its own, you know, fundamentals, and a lot of that stuff is a lot easier to pick up when you are really young. So um, I think it's heavily important for middle schoolers, and especially, if you consider the way that most middle school debate programs work. I mean, you've generally got a teacher who, if they're lucky, has like a class that's just for debate, but maybe they're just teaching social studies for most of the day, and then
Right.
afterwards they get a practice, and it's chaos. Um, and the kids are excited, and they just got out of school, and they want a snack, and you generally have like a really small amount of time to really reach an individual student. And the ability for AI to help onboard and teach fundamentals to students, I think, is just so helpful for teaching. um, you obviously want to have that one-on-one personal connection with every student, but it's not the reality all the time.
Right.
And the times where that student would just kind of be aimlessly wandering Google, or maybe looking at like a PowerPoint, something like AI and ChatGPT that can answer questions,
Mhm.
and sort of like have a more dynamic process that I don't think is the same as in-person teaching, but definitely mirrors it a lot more than any other tool that we have. I think is just so helpful for those students.
Right. Like whenever I talk about ChatGPT, especially with instructors, seems that people gravitate towards this idea is like, well, it's just going to like, is this going to replace people? And I don't know why I don't go there in the same way. It's like all this is going to do is add to what we have. It's like another, now it's another, another arrow in our quill, another tool in
Right.
the box, or something like that. And so, do you find that as well? Do you think that people initially have this fear that it's going to like push people out of jobs?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a reality. And I think that, especially if you work in education, there's this sense of scarcity that can be very scary, whenever
Mm,
you are working in this field. That, like especially since 2008 and the recession, there is a sense that universities and public schools are looking to make ends meet, and administrators are making incredibly difficult choices all the time. Um, but I think if you ask any teacher, do you have too little on your plate or too much? All of them would say too much, right? So, like,
right.
if we all have too much on our plate, if we all have so much going on, to me, any tool that can help take a little bit off is a good thing, for students, and a good thing for teachers as well. Um, and just even going back to, innovations that have happened previously, and relating it to debate in particular, really every technological innovation that I can think of that's happened in my life has reduced the barrier from student to information.
Yeah.
When I went to college, most people probably had like a laptop, not everybody did. And there was a 24-hour lab, and sometimes we'd like do our prep in there. And just having a personal PC, to a degree, reduces that barrier from student to information. You don't have
Right.
to go to a library. You can look it up, in your own house. And then, that we get like much better search engines. We get Google. We get, online debate. We get debating with laptops, right? Like all of that has reduced the amount of time it takes to get a student to the information. But it
Mhm.
hasn't made debate worse. It's made debate different. We've focused a lot more on how people process information, and how they're able to like personally relate, and like express that information in their own terms.
So we've talked a lot about ChatGPT, but I wanted to ask, are there any other AI tools that you are using as far as coaching goes?
Yeah, one, haven't used this one a lot, but I definitely plan to in the future. So have you heard of Udemy?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah.
Udemy is one
Udemy
that
is someone that we've been having a pretty good partnership with at Proto Communications. Yeah.
awesome. So yeah, Udemy, is a tool that like I definitely plan on using probably this summer more.
Mm,
Whenever I'm working with younger students, especially students who, like their ambition is to get better, just at like being confident and talking to, like people in their real personal lives.
right.
For them, a tool like Udemy, which I mean is a tool that can provide feedback on how fast are you speaking? Is it too fast? Is it not fast enough? Is your volume high or is it too low? Are the words that you're using inclusive? Are you
Right.
able to, um, are you speaking to like everyone in the room, or are you just looking at one person? And
Hmm.
is that being stratified in terms of some sort of like exclusionary basis? And so, I think something like Udemy is incredibly helpful also at kind of relating what we're doing in speech and debate to something that's helpful for people in their normal lives. And so, yeah, I think I'll definitely be using some Udemy. And I know a lot of other educators
Yeah.
that are using Udemy right now, especially ones who are teaching those younger students and teaching public speaking skills. And I think that's a really cool tool.
Udemy it just added a feature to a few of them where the coaching feedback actually gives conciseness suggestions, where it takes your transcript, says you said this in this many words, you can say it in half as many, and it gives you
Yeah,
the suggestion and be able to like play it back. It's amazing,
no,
absolutely amazing, and like that's really important for like, word economy.
yeah. I mean, I can think back to whenever I was a student, we used to do this drill where you would record yourself and then by hand transcribe what you said,
Oh,
and then like use a highlighter and try to figure out the
oh,
verbal filler, and the idea that like there's an AI that can do that, and some people might find that scary, but it's like, was it a good thing that we were spending all of our time doing the transcription, or would it have been better
yeah.
for us if like a tool could have done the transcription and then we could have focused more on other skills, on other arguments, or getting that individual feedback. So that's really awesome. Excited about that.
Yeah, like it makes you wonder what the point of the work was. You know what I mean? It's like the transcript. What skill were you learning during
Oh man,
that, or was it just necessary? It was just necessary grunt
yeah.
work in order to get
Oh, yeah.
to achieve a certain goal.
When I think back, I did. I mean, when you think back, like just doing even just like traditional forensics, I did Lincoln Douglas, I did parliamentary debate, and I did extemp. It was just a lot of grunt work involved in like
Yeah.
doing those, that even today is not necessary. I used to spend hours of my time printing out paper, organizing it into little expandos, writing
Mhm.
out little table of contents on the expandos, trying to figure out the best way to fit the expandos into my tub, and then carrying those tubs around. You're in the airport. I mean, and all of that's no longer necessary. But no one's like that's a bad thing. Like I don't think anyone wants to go back to those days. And so I'm hoping as we discover more applications for artificial intelligence for debate, that we'll look back on even this era and be like, wow, like the fact that teachers had to go through all of that. Now chat gpt helps us do that. I'm hoping that that's the positive future we're all looking for.
I did that too, although dragging tubs around and hanging files and color coding all the extent stuff. Now, one thing that I felt like I was able to get out of that whole process that I'm worried about losing is just the general accessible knowledge that people have, because the filing process makes us like aware of where things are. But now it's like you become aware as soon as the topic is announced. Are there any drawbacks that you are worried about the incorporation of AI tools into coaching?
Yeah, so this is kind of the last piece that I like had in the statement where it's like I think this may help even solidify the role that debate and forensics has in education,
Hmm.
because as writing maybe becomes something that everyone has more access to. We have artificial intelligence that can write a 5 sentence essay. As we kind of have those tools, just like the calculator makes being able to
Right,
do like multiplication tables not obsolete, but like more ubiquitous.
right,
The idea that soft skills are now sort of funneling through the ability to convey that information to other people, to you know to understand it contextually to your identity and to convey it to an audience, or in debate terms to sort of like clash those ideas with another person. To me it almost makes it seem as if debate's more important than ever. Like
mhm,
if writing a 5 sentence essay is now synonymous with doing your multiplication on a calculator, then the skill the academy needs to teach isn't just writing the essays.
right,
It's being able to personally convey the information and stuff like that. I think is
right,
what forensics is so good about doing. And as coaches, we think a lot about the writing process, the creation process, but at least as a student, most of the fun and most of where I learned was just like in those rounds, in those
right.
experiences where like it was about my ability to like actually say that information. And so I think forensics potentially has an opportunity to sort of position ourselves as the most necessary skill. And there's a lot of information that says it already is that
Right.
if you want a good leader of your corporation, your organization, you need somebody who can communicate, who can relate to others, who can relay information effectively, and can has the emotional intelligence to
Right.
cooperate and work with others, and is a self-starter and can work from home. All that stuff. I think forensics does such a great job of doing.
All right. We got a little comment here.
Yeah.
Plastic tub market. You're right. Oh man, it
Yeah.
must have just dropped out. All right. Yeah, you short that stock right there.
Yeah, I don't. Whatever.
Um,
I hope that
yes.
those plastic tub companies were able to survive the loss of all that debate work. But we were passing down those tubs, so I don't know how much original purchasing was really
Right.
happening.
That's very true. That's very true. I do remember one time we gave one of our tubs a Viking funeral. We just
Wow.
set it adrift and lit it on fire at the end of the season. So that's a fun experience that
We
people
used
don't
to do that every
necessarily
year,
get
actually.
out of it.
At the end of every
Yeah,
year,
you should
uh,
do that.
at the end
Yeah.
of every year, we used to take one person's tub and just like burn it and have a bonfire.
Oh
One year,
man.
the fire department came, so it was an experience.
So, do you see? So, you said that your textbook's been out for a while now. Do you see yourself making any amendments or changes or edits to it now that ChatGPT and other AI tools are out?
So I definitely think that I want to incorporate maybe some techniques to use ChatGPT
Hmm.
um, for team organization and for strategy. And it's honestly like as small as let's say that you have 12 debaters, and you over the course of I don't know a month or two want to figure out like how to pair them up so that like everyone has like a pairing with each other, and you don't want to repeat sides or matchups.
Hmm.
Before that would take me like an hour to figure out,
Right.
like, and then I can just go to ChatGPT and say, I've got 12 debaters, here are their names, create pairs, don't
Uh,
double up. And it takes like 12 seconds. And then it's like I can focus on other stuff.
Right.
And I think it's awesome. So I don't know that I've like thought about going back to that particular text and updating it. But in like future stuff that I write, I definitely want to share hopefully any innovations that I come across in terms of AI to assist with debate practice.
Okay. So debating, like online debate tournaments, are here to stay.
Yeah.
Do you think that that poses any special challenges? Like, does AI play a different role in that, or do you think it's pretty much the same?
I think it can depend a little bit on the event. So,
Mm.
I think that there are events where the emphasis in terms of what this event is giving to the student is very much about the ability to synthesize information in a short period of time. So, I mean, your limited prep events, parliamentary debate. And I do think those events are going to have to think a little bit about how to sort of like either change the focus of the event a little bit or to I don't know, banning computers just seems like such a silly idea. So like,
Right.
just
Right.
figure out some safeguards for the integrity of the event. But to me, all those concerns just seem so secondary to the
Right.
massive benefit of online debate. And,
Yeah.
and there's definitely concerns, like, and there's concerns regarding, our university is going to find out that tournaments can happen a lot cheaper online and sort of insist that, that becomes the predominant model. Our students, figuring out ways to sort of like beat the system and maybe, and, like that's probably always been, concerns. But the idea that we can do tournaments and supplement the number of experiences that students have to do this thing, to do forensics, is just such a huge benefit to me. And I really hope that we figure out how to make online tournaments more fun, because that to me is the only barrier at this point. And I obviously don't blame any tournament director, and I've hosted online tournaments, and I'm sure they like weren't chock full of fun stuff. It was kind of just like a slug of rounds, and that's just kind of how things
Yeah.
have gone so far. But if we can figure out how to figure out that piece, how to make online tournaments fun, and there's a lot of technology that I don't think that we've tapped into for community engagement, for more dynamic experiences, for socialization at tournaments. If we can figure out that piece, I think we've got a game changer on our hands in terms of the future of debate. As you mentioned, we are at WKU, we're a well-established program.
Right.
When we have our opening meeting, the president comes and gives us like a rah-rah like speech. Even we have challenges regarding budget because forensics is expensive. It's really, really expensive.
Right.
And if you kind of reach the admin level and start to compare forensics to other activities, you start to sweat because you're like, in terms of other activities, we are a very expensive way to create experiences for students.
Yeah.
Online debate, man, it really helps solve some of those issues. And I don't want to, I don't want a future where it's just online debate. I do really believe in the idea of, you get in a van or you get in a car or a plane and you travel somewhere, and that opens your eyes and that changes who you think you are. I mean, I know I'm kind of rambling, but Ketanji Jackson Brown, the Supreme Court Justice, she shared what I think is like a really common forensics experience where she talked about how she went to Harvard for a speech tournament, and that was the first time she ever thought, maybe I can go to Harvard,
Oh, right.
The travel of forensics
That's
is a huge, amazing part of what we're doing.
right.
But we can't afford to do it all the time, and the fact that online debate provides a chance to do this activity without the expense of travel is, I think, a real game changer, hopefully, for teams, for budgets, and for the future viability of this activity. Moving forward, we do a lot of online tournaments. I would say maybe half is like a little bit overstating it, but like at least 40% of the competition is online.
Well, let's talk about your tournament, the LD Grand Prix. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's the 5th year of the LD Grand Prix. And basically, we just wanted to create another opportunity for students in NFALD to prep before the national tournament. And so
Ah,
we basically decided that there could be some, some fun innovations. One was kind of a callback to my time in parliamentary debate when I competed in college to the NPTE, the National Parliamentary Tournament of Excellence. So we do double elims, meaning that when you reach elimination rounds, you got to lose twice before you're out of
oh,
the
nice.
tournament, which I always thought was like a super fun innovation that the NPTE provided. And then this year, we're going to start offering some awards for season long success. We're going to do some All American awards. We're going to do hopefully like a student vote for a congeniality award, or like a person who contributed the most to the circuit. So I mean, I really just want the tournament to feel like a celebration, of the circuit, of this event, and to provide some fun chances for people to go to different locations around the country or online. We're making all the tournaments hybrid. So, folks can't go, then they could also just go via online.
So what format is a Grand Prix? Is it face-to-face?
So we do have a location at University of North Texas in Denton, Texas, but it's a hybrid tournament. So it's one of those where it's face to face, but then you can also enter online. And so we've gone to a couple of hybrids, and there's sometimes a few kinks, but it works out. I mean, I think the technology was a lot further ahead than a lot of people in debate, I think, really thought in terms of video conferencing. And so, I mean, video conferencing technology is just strong enough, I think, to support a hybrid component to pretty much every tournament, if it's one that the host can support.
Well, excellent. Everybody should check out the LD Grand Prix. If you do LD at all, it's a great way to prepare for it. Also, check out the publication, the Introduction to Public Forum and Congressional Debate. I want to thank Chad Meadows from Western Kentucky University, as well as a few other places, for stopping by and discussing his thoughts about this. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate you having me, and I hope that it was helpful or interesting to the audience.
All right. Excellent. That's all we have for today, but we have future guests coming, so stay tuned.